Hi guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today's video we're going to do a Shabbos cooking video again. I know that I've done a few in the past, but I think it's going to be interesting as a series where once a season I show you what I do because I keep changing things to make it interesting. So now we're going to do a winter one and we're going to get into this. I made a chicken soup yesterday. I'm going to show you how I made that. Right now we're going to get going on sourdough. We're going to do dips and salads. We're going to do fish. We're going to do a bunch of things. I'll talk you through what we're making as I am making the sourdough bread. If you want to see the full process for that, I can link a video for you where I show you the whole process of how I make it. But I've done this already a few times, so I'm not going to show you the whole process. I will have some of the recipes linked for you down below, whatever I could. Whatever's from recipe books, I won't link. I hope you enjoy coming along with me for today and tomorrow as I cook all of the delicious Shabbos food. Okay, so on the menu this week, we're going to have our sourdough bread. I have some challah, which I made, when did I make it? 2 weeks ago. So I have some in my freezer still. For dips and salads, I have madbucha in my fridge. I have hummus in my fridge, and I have chili onion crunch in the pantry. So we're going to be making baba ganoush, tomato dip, which you have seen before, and if you've seen any of my previous Shabbos videos. The eggplant I'm still figuring out. If you've seen, I think it was 2 weeks ago, my video that I got a new oven, and last week, the first week that I had the new oven, the eggplant baba ganoush didn't roast up the same way that it did on my old oven. So we're gonna have to figure that out. So I will bring you along for that. And we're gonna try something. I've made it in the past. My family, it's been in my family for years. It's just been a long time since I made it. Is a pickle salad, which we're gonna make that. I've been craving it lately. And then we're gonna make a new side of salmon that we've been enjoying. That reminds me, I actually have to run to the store, pick up one ingredient that my store that I shopped in didn't have. And then we needed the chicken soup, so we put that up yesterday because I let it cook for almost 24 hours. I like to do it on Wednesday. So on Thursday I have the stovetop space to do other things. Now, I don't know if I ever showed you guys the Rice Krispie chicken tenders that I make. So we're going to make that. We're going to make potato kugel, which I know you've seen me make before. We're going to make our chont. I've been making sesame noodles lately. So I either serve it with the salmon because it goes well together, or just with a main course, depending what main course I made and what I'm in the mood of that week. Then we're going to make a Szechuan broccoli, we'll call it salad, or just a vegetable side dish like a stir fry. And for dessert, we're going to make a carrot cake with a cream cheese frosting, which I'll be using a dairy-free cream cheese for that. So I think once we have this done, I'm gonna make the carrot cake. I like starting with a dessert whenever I plan for it, because usually it's a multi-step, or it's better if it sits for a while. So, and it gets me in the mood of just being in the kitchen, because who doesn't love dessert? But sometimes if I have extra time and I decide once I'm done with cooking that I want a dessert, I'll make one the last thing. But usually then it would be just like cookies with ingredients that I always have handy, or like an easy cake that has basic ingredients that I have in the pantry. Before I actually show you how I make the carrot cake, let me take you back to yesterday when I made the chicken soup. Because I just got back from the store. I'm still unpacking my grocery order, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get going on our chicken soup. So the way I do it is I have my big stock pot here. I'm going to fill it up about 3/4 with water. Okay, I have water till here. That's good for now. If needed, I'll add more later on. I'm going to get this on the stove top. And we're going to get this boiling. And I like to start this Wednesday morning. I let it come up to a boil. I add the chicken and salt and pepper. I do the black peppercorn. I let it cook all night. I let it cook all day with that chicken. And then at night I add in vegetables and herbs and aromatics and all that stuff. I let it cook overnight, and in the morning I turn it off. So it cooks almost 24 hours. Yeah, so this has come to a rolling boil. We're definitely there. So I'm going to take off the cover. It's probably been boiling for a while. I just forgot to come check on it. I'm gonna add salt. I need more than was in here, so I'll get some in a minute. I'm gonna add some peppercorn. Now I'm gonna use some wrap and boil bags for my chicken bones. Since I'll be having vegetables in here and chicken nuggets that I'm not gonna be getting rid of, anything that does end up not being divided into containers to be used, I like to put into wrap and boil bags so it's easier to get them out when it's done cooking and we're dividing it up. So I'm gonna get the chicken bones in here. I'm gonna drop this into the water. And now for the chicken nuggets, I like to drop it in one piece at a time. And I find like that when we eat these nuggets, when I'm serving the soup, they're very juicy. When I dump it all in together, or if I put it in a wrap and boil bag, which I used to do, they were dry. Now if you were to just let this boil, cook for a few hours, this is chicken stock. We're going to make it into chicken soup by later adding the vegetables and herbs and aromatics. So I'm going to let this come up to a boil again, and then we're going to lower the heat and we're going to let it simmer all day. And then, like I said, at night, probably after it's simmering for like 10 hours, I would add the vegetables and let it come up to a boil again, let it simmer overnight, and we'll turn it off in the morning. Oh, I forgot salt. Let's refill this and add some more in here. Okay, so our soup here has been simmering for hours. I keep adjusting the heat, and I saw that it's not really bubbling, so I just turned it up a few minutes ago. So, but look at that color. beautiful color that we developed. Now we're going to get our vegetables in. Okay, so we're going to use another wrap and boil bag. And in here, like I said earlier, we're going to add whatever we won't be adding into our containers. That'll go into the freezer. So we're going to add an onion. I would suggest using a bigger one. I just don't have any bigger ones in the house right now. I'm going to try putting it in ginger for the first time. I'm also going to add in garlic. No need to peel that. A parsnip. And I've got an entire bunch of parsley here. Everything is rinsed and prepped. The parsnip I cut in half. It's one piece, just so that it fits in easier in here. The dill, I'm going to leave some aside for a salad that we're going to be prepping tomorrow. I think that'll be enough. More than enough, actually. The remainder of this bunch will go in here. And we can tie this up. Now I have a bunch of carrots that I've peeled and cut up. I believe it's, oh yeah, a 1 pound bag of carrots. The entire bag. Oof. Gotta move this away from here. Okay. Over here I got some zucchini that I just washed and cut into chunks. I do not peel them because coming out of the freezer with a peel it holds up a lot better. If you peel it, then it falls apart when you reheat it. But if you're eating it fresh, you can peel it if you don't like that. And the last is some celery. I did an entire bunch of celery, rinsed it, and cut it into chunks. Now we're going to let this come back up to a boil, and we're going to let this simmer till the morning. So the thing that I like about the carrot cake recipe that I'm using is that it uses fresh carrots. Not like a lot of recipes call for the jarred, like baby food carrots. I don't do that. So I'm going to start by peeling and shredding up 2 cups of this. Now as I'm working in the kitchen, I like having a bowl out. And I usually give all the scraps to my chickens. So as I measure them out, I'm going to get it into our mixer. Because the recipe says to just add all the ingredients and mix it to combine. So there's no need to cream the eggs with the sugar or anything before adding in the carrots. Now we can add the rest of the ingredients. So we're going to add in 2 cups of sugar. 2 cups of flour. We're going to do 1 cup of oil. Next we'll add 4 eggs. Now, this recipe I found online many years ago, and I saved it without the link, so if I can find it, I'll link it for you down below. The last few ingredients will be baking powder, cinnamon. It does call for allspice, but I don't have any ground, so we're not going to add it today. And some baking soda. I'm going to mix this to combine it. So it looks like the carrot just stuck to the middle over here. So I'll push it down so that it can incorporate into the batter. I think I'm going to have to do that as I pour it into the cake pan. We're going to grease a 9x13 pan. Now we can get this cake batter into our prepared pan. I'm going to try to mix in the carrots a little bit better and smooth out the top. Now this will bake in a 350 oven for 35 minutes or until a cake tester comes out clean or a toothpick comes out clean. Maybe just a little bit of wet crumbs. I know from the past that for me it needs to bake a lot longer, but since it's the first time that I'm making it in my new oven, it might not be as long, so we'll find out and I'll try to keep you updated. This cake ended up baking for about 55 minutes. I probably could have baked it another 5 to 10 minutes longer. And I thought that I recorded myself making the frosting, but I can't find the footage. But this was delicious and the entire thing was enjoyed. Hey guys, so it's actually a week later, and what happened was that I made the sourdough, I made the carrot cake, and then I got so sick I couldn't move. Everything hurt. So I took everything, all the proteins, whatever I could, I put into the freezer, and we invited ourselves somewhere else for Shabbos. Now it's the next week, and we're gonna make all those things today. So we already have the chicken soup that we made. It's in the freezer, and everything else we're gonna make today. If things look a little bit differently, it's because it's a week later. But they're still gonna be good. Now we're gonna get working on our baba ganoush. So I'm gonna make 2 eggplants today, because when I make one, it's just not enough. You can never have enough. So I start with the 2 eggplants. I'm gonna wrap it up in foil. I wrap it in 2 layers of foil, one going around the eggplant, the other one going from top to bottom. And then we're gonna get it onto the flame. We're gonna get it a high flame, and we're gonna let it roast. Okay, so like I said earlier, last week I took my proteins and I put them into the freezer. I was gonna defrost them overnight, but I forgot. So I have over here some salmon, a side of salmon. I took it out earlier. We're waiting for it to defrost. I also have my chicken tenders that we're waiting to defrost. And I've also lately been buying, it's a vacuum sealed pastrami that I put into the challenge. And it cooks in there. And now we're just gonna flip these 20 minutes on each side. We're pretending that it has 4 sides. So we're now on the 3rd. Now we're gonna work on our pickle salad. And for this, first of all, I'm gonna double the recipe. So I'm gonna tell you the quantities that I'm using. But just know that this is a double recipe. So you can do it half. You can multiply it however many times you want. And it's not, you don't have to follow this exactly. It's a rough idea of how much to use. So I'm going to start off with 4 pickles that I'm going to dice up pretty small. And I have a bowl ready. And as soon as it's diced up, I'm going to get it into the bowl. Next, I'm going to very finely dice half of a red pepper and add that into my bowl as well. Now we're going to add some garlic. The recipe does say to use the frozen garlic cubes, but since I have fresh and I like the flavor of the fresh more, I'm going to go with this instead. The last thing we need to add before we can do the dressing is add some dill. So when I made the soup last week, I left aside some dill, and since it's been a week, some of it has wilted. So I'm going to destem, and at the same time I'm going to leave off any of the dill leaves that have wilted, and then I'm going to mince it up and add that to the bowl as well. I didn't have any mayonnaise, so I quickly made some off camera. You've seen me make it many times. And I'm adding about a cup of this to the bowl along with some vinegar, and I'm going to add salt, black pepper, and a little bit of sugar. Combine it, and then I'm going to transfer it into a container and get this into the fridge. Next, we're going to work on the tomato dip. Lately, I've been using the cherry tomatoes that adds the sweetness to the dip. I'm adding 4 or 5 garlic cloves. I can't see, it's 4. I'm going to peel it and get the whole thing in there. I'm going to blend it long enough that the machine will have time to break it down all the way, so that I don't have to mince it or dice it or do anything with it other than peel it. I'm going to add salt and pepper to this, and then I'm going to blend this up for a nice long time. When the tomatoes have mostly broken down, I'm going to drizzle in some olive oil. I would say probably about half a cup, maybe a 3/4 cup. If once you're done and you put it into the fridge and it separates, that means that you didn't have enough oil. You can always put it back, add more oil, blend it up some more. But you want that oil. The oil is the emulsifier. So while this is blending up, I'm telling you, I'm blending it for a very long time. I'm also going to make a tea, which I think I've shown you guys already before. If I did, I'll add a card for you on top as well, so you can go ahead and watch that. And once this is done, I'm going to get it into a container and get it into the fridge. At this point, our eggplant is done roasting, so we're going to get to making the baba ganoush. So I'm working on a towel because the foil will break down and it makes a lot of dirt, lots of little pieces of foil everywhere. So I find it easiest like that. Once I'm done, I can just take the entire towel, shake it over the garbage, get rid of all of that mess. So I'm unwrapping the eggplant. I'm working with one at a time. Did I say that? I don't know. Can't remember. And once I have it open, I'm going to take a knife. I'm going to cut a slit into it from the top to the bottom. And then I'm going to take a spoon and scoop out all of the meat from the inside and get that into my food processor bowl. And I'm going to do this to both of my eggplants. I'm going to season this with some garlic powder and salt. The last thing to be added here is mayonnaise. And for this, it very much depends on how much meat of eggplant that you got. So I would say pretend the eggplant is 1 part. I would do somewhere between a half and a 3/4 part of mayonnaise. Blend it up just a few seconds and it's done. Into a jar, into the fridge. Actually, let it cool a little bit before you get it into the fridge, especially if it's still hot. The next thing we're making is the fish. So I got a side of salmon onto a lined baking sheet, and I'm gonna season this with salt, onion powder, garlic powder, and paprika. Now I'm gonna work on making a paste that I will spread over top of the fish. So for this, we're gonna start off with some wasabi powder, and I am doing less than the recipe calls for, because the first time I made it, it was like a hit of wasabi, and it was way too much for me personally. So I do half of the wasabi powder, and that way it just has like a hint of it, and it's way more palatable for me. I'm gonna add some honey, and I'm gonna leave it on the side because I'm gonna need more later. Next, I'm adding some mirin, which is a sweet, tangy rice wine. And again, I'm gonna leave this on the side because I'm gonna need it again later. And some rice vinegar. Then I'm gonna combine this all until it forms a nice thick paste. And I'm gonna spread this over top of the fish. And I find the best way to do it is that I just drizzle it over the fish, and then I use my spatula to spread it around. And it will move around the spices a little bit, but that's okay because it mixes in with this paste, and it just spices the fish evenly. It's okay. And I just try to cover the entire fish with this paste. The final component for this fish is a crumb mixture that will go on top. So we're starting off with some panko crumbs in a bowl. We're going to add some of that mirin in here. Next up is some soy sauce, black pepper, sesame seeds, and sesame oil. I'm going to mix this until all of that panko is coated in all the liquid that I added, and it is all nice and combined. Now I'm going to cover the fish with all of this crumb. So I'm going to pour it over the fish, and I find the best way to get an even coating is to spread it out with my hands. So that's what I am going to do. Last thing is I'm going to drizzle this with some honey over the top, and this is going to bake on 350 for 30 minutes uncovered. So this fish just came out of the oven. The recipe does say to bake it for 30 minutes. I ended up baking it for 15 more minutes, because it was still a little bit frozen, so I want to make sure that it's baked through. And I tested it with a thermometer. I have this. I put the end in and I'll hold it there for a few seconds until the temperature read 145. 145 is cooked for salmon. So now now we're going to make potato kugel. I want tomorrow to be a super easy, light day. So I want to make the kugel today. I'll show you tomorrow how I reheat it so we can enjoy it and it'll taste as if it's fresh. We're also going to prep the challah tonight. Like that, tomorrow we'll just have, looking at my list of things, tomorrow we'll bake the sourdough, chicken, we'll make noodles and broccoli. Should be pretty simple. So we're going to move this out of the way and we're going to get going with kugel. While we're here, I'm also going to peel 2 more potatoes for our challah. And we're going to soak it in water, or I'm thinking if I should set up the challah now. I mean, get everything into the crock pot, but set it in the fridge and only get it into the machine later today. I'll decide that in the next few minutes, I guess. Okay, so I got a big onion. This will go for our kugel. I'm gonna go give this to the chickens before we move on. I'm gonna take this to the sink. I'm gonna rinse all of the potatoes. I'm going to crack 6 eggs into my bowl/pot. I don't have a bowl big enough to accommodate all of these potatoes. I mean, I do have my challah bowl, but that's way too big. And I usually only pull it out when I'm making a double recipe of kugel or more. But when I'm making one batch, this pot is actually perfect size to be able to mix it all together. Next, I'm going to break up the eggs and whisk it up. And this just makes it a lot easier to combine it with the potatoes and onions and spices later on. At this point, my oven is usually preheated or almost preheated to 550 degrees. And I am adding my oil to the pan that I'll be baking this kugel in. And I'm going to get it into the oven to preheat the oil. Now we can finally get to shredding our vegetables. So I do half of the vegetables at a time, because if I do the full amount, the bowl overflows and the juices get everywhere and it just doesn't work properly. So what I do is I add 2 potatoes, a quarter onion, 1 potato, quarter onion, and then 2 more potatoes. I empty everything into the pot with the eggs, and then I repeat the same thing. 2 potatoes, quarter onion, 1 potato, quarter onion, the last 2 potatoes. Now I'm going to start mixing in the eggs with the vegetables. The reason why I like to do it at this point is to prevent the potatoes from browning. Next is when I usually add my spices, which is going to be salt and white pepper. Now I'm going to get my hot pan with the oil out of the oven. I am going to pour that oil over the spices, and then I'm going to mix that all together. And once I feel like it's all evenly combined, I will pour all of this back into the pan, get it into the oven, 550 degrees, or if your oven doesn't go that high, do at least 500, and let it bake for an hour. After an hour, I lower it to 350 and bake it for an additional 30 minutes. Next up, we're going to prep our challah. So I am starting off with adding some water directly in the pot, and I am going to insert my plastic liner in there. This is a lifesaver. Without this, I would probably replace my crock pot every single week because I hate cleaning it and I don't have a bag. And this is literally a lifesaver. It's the easiest thing when it comes to cleaning up. Just get the bag out, throw it away, and wipe it out. It's usually pretty clean. And I add enough water between the pot and the bag, probably about an inch of water for it to work best. Now I'm going to dice up an onion and get that into the pot. And I'm going to cut my potatoes into cubes and get that into the pot as well. Now I'm going to add my beans. I usually add equal amounts of each: kidney beans, navy beans, and barley. And I think on this day I decided to do 3/4 cup of each. Now for the spices, I'm going to add salt, black pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, which I had very little, so I'm adding some smoked paprika as well, a dash of cayenne pepper, some pepper flakes, and I'm adding some umami. Umami is a mushroom-based spice that adds a cooked-through flavor, as if I, let's say, sauteed the onion, or if I added meat, as if I ground that meat. Next up is salam, which is a date syrup for some sweetness, and some soy sauce. At this point, I would usually add the water, cover it, and get it cooking. Instead, I covered it, got it into the fridge, and then later this day, at night, actually, I added the water and got it into the crock pot to cook. Okay guys, so it's the next morning. Doing this was brilliant. I prepped everything before without the water. And then the reason why this worked for me was because I went out of my house about 6:30 yesterday in the evening. I only got home 11:30 at night. So all I had to do was add the water, put it into the machine, and it was ready to go. It's been going on low all day. And I mean all night, and it's going to continue going all day today, and we'll enjoy this tomorrow. I also, when I got home, the cocoa came out of the oven right before we left. So I left it out. When I got home, it was completely cool. I covered it and set it in the fridge. We're going to reheat it soon. I'll show you how. And then the next thing we're doing is that we are going to make our pasta. So I boiled some, I have some water in here coming up to temperature. I had some oil in here from frying something, so I put it in here for our chicken. So it's waiting for us. And while we're waiting for the oil, for the water to come up to a boil, it's early in the morning, I don't know my words, I'm sorry. So while we're waiting for this to boil and then cook the pasta, we're going to start working on the sauce. And the sauce we're going to make directly in the pan that we will be using, that we're going to be keeping it in until we are ready to eat. I have my recipe here. Let's get going on this. And this is how I usually cook when I don't have you guys. I put my recipe books up here so that I can easily see what I am doing. For the sauce, I'm going to start off with some soy sauce. I'm going to add sesame oil. The recipe calls for either peanut or vegetable oil. I don't have peanut, I don't use vegetable, so I'm using avocado instead. Next, you can add either sweet chili or teriyaki sauce. I'm going with teriyaki. Sesame seeds. Okay, next up I have here a bunch of scallions that I cut up on a diagonal. You can see where the cut. I'm doing probably close to the full amount of scallions that we needed, because this was all the scallions that I had in the fridge and we love it and we can never have enough of it, so we're going to add that in. Okay, next we're going to add some garlic. Okay, the last thing we're going to add is some ginger. We're going to mix this together. Then we're going to have it ready and waiting for us. So when our pasta is done, I'll just add it in here and toast it all together. I'm still waiting for my water to come up to a boil. So technically, you can do this in the time that it takes to cook the pasta. And I'm going to use thin linguine. I forgot to add honey. There we go. Let's mix in the honey. I said that I forgot something because I've made it already. And I thought I remembered that it called for honey. And it does. It does. It does. Okay, here I've got our pasta. It's still hot. I didn't even rinse it because I wanted to absorb all the flavor of the sauce that we made. And if the pasta would be cold, it would just coat it. It wouldn't get absorbed into the pasta. So I'm going to toast it all while the smell, the sesame oil, comes out. It's delicious. Not the best tool to use to toast the pasta. I usually break the pasta in half so that it's a little bit easier to toast and to eat. I forgot to do that today. This might be crazy on my part, but I'm going to make some cuts so that it's easier for everyone. And the recipe does say to top this with some nuts. I've never done that. Delicious. Even with the amount of scallions that I did, they're getting lost in this amount of pasta. So, we can never not have enough, like I said. And the next thing we're going to be working on is the sourdough. So I'm preheating my Dutch ovens while the oven is coming up to temperature. I have my oil here. So I had recently that I fried some fish over here. And this is a huge flame. It was so inconsistent. Even on the lowest heat, it just burned the fish so fast. So we're going to try doing it on the middle burner and leaving it on the edge here and see what it does over here. Finding out, I thought I'm going to struggle with the new oven, to get used to how to bake in it, but I'm struggling more with my burners, with how to cook. And I prepared 3 bowls here. We're going to get going with our breading for the chicken. I also took out of the freezer, well, the sun is really bright right now, some noodles for the soup, some matzo balls, some chicken soup, and challah. I might take out another challah. We'll see how many guests I'm expecting, and we'll take out more if needed. Bowl number 1, we're going to add some flour. I'm going to add in salt, pepper, garlic powder, and it calls for paprika, and since I don't have any, I'm using the smoked. We're going to mix this together. Bowl number 2, we're going to add in 2 eggs. I do have an egg white from yesterday's mayonnaise. We needed an egg plus an egg yolk. So I have the white here, and this is from our chickens. I didn't want it to go to waste. So we're going to add that here, and if it's not enough, I will crack another egg later. We're going to beat this together. And bowl number 3, we'll have Rice Krispies. And I usually leave this out. If I need more, I can refill it easily. Now I have my chicken tenders here. I'm going to open up the package. Okay, so I'm pulling out my kugel from the fridge so that it can come to room temperature a little bit. How about deliciousness? Yeah, I want it to come to room temperature a little bit before we heat it up for today. Okay, the frying of the chicken can take a while. So I put in an earbud. And the way we're going to do this is I keep one hand wet, one hand dry. I take the chicken, dip it in the flour. We're going to move it to the egg. And then I let it sit over here until I'm ready to fry it. And that's when I'll coat it with Rice Krispies. I'm also preparing a plate with some paper towels on it that we're going to get the chickens onto when they come out of the oil. So we're going to coat this with Rice Krispies. And get it into the oil. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of the chicken. Coat it in flour. Get it into the eggs. And once those come out, we'll get the next batch coated in Rice Krispies and fry those up. Okay, these are beautiful golden brown on one side. And they're going to continue cooking still. I don't know if I'm liking to cook on this flame. We'll see after this batch if I decide to move it back to this flame. Once the chicken is golden brown on both sides, I am removing it onto the prepared paper towel lined plate to cool and for the excess oil to drip off and get absorbed into that paper towel. And once all of that is out of the pot, I'm going to get to coating the next batch of chicken with the Rice Krispies and get that into the oil. And I'm going to continue doing this until all of the chicken is cooked. Okay, every time when I flip the chicken,
I come back here and I take the chicken that's on the plate and I get it into my tray here that is also lined with a paper towel. I'll keep repeating this. Okay, so I want to get this into the oven now to reheat. So I uncovered it and we're gonna get some water over the top. And this water will make it feel and taste like a fresh kugel, not like it was made yesterday. I do this method even with a kugel that's been cut open if I want to serve it, let's say on Sunday. I'm gonna get this into the oven and whenever we want, we'll pull it out and we'll enjoy this.
So for the broccoli vegetables, we have some broccoli cut into florets. I have a portobello mushrooms with stems removed, cut into strips, and a half of red pepper sliced into matchstick slices. I am pulling out a bowl and we're gonna make the sauce for this. I'm starting off with the spices, which are ginger, black pepper, and red pepper flakes. Next, I'm adding some honey, rice vinegar, red wine vinegar, lemon juice, soy sauce, a frozen garlic cube, sesame oil, and a dash of sriracha sauce. I'm gonna mix this to combine and set it aside. I pulled out my wok, I heated it up, and now I'm gonna add some oil and let that come up to temperature as well. And you want to have everything ready because it's gonna cook super quick. I walked away for a second and the oil started smoking, but I added in my broccoli and we're gonna let this cook for about 3 to 5 minutes. And now we're gonna add mushrooms and peppers. And I don't know if I didn't have or I forgot about it. The recipe also calls for scallions. That would have been delicious. We're gonna add all the vegetables in along with the sauce that we prepped and some cornstarch that I have dissolved in water. And we're gonna stir this until combined and the sauce begins to thicken and heat through. And then we're gonna stir fry this for an additional 3 minutes about, and then this is done. And since we won't be eating this right away, I am transferring this into a pan that I can then put into my oven. My new oven has Shabbos mode, so I can use it and reheat it right before the meal. Now that it's close to Shabbos, I'm also gonna reheat my soup so that once it's reheated, I can get it into the oven. I like having the oven on rather than having a flame. So I'm adding it all into a pot, my 2 containers. And as you can see, I have the chicken in there. I have carrots, celery, and squash, all the vegetables that I left out of the mesh bag when I was cooking the soup. And I'm also going to add in the matzo balls that I defrosted. And we're going to let that heat through as well. At this point, I'm also going to add in our pastrami vacuum packed meat into the challah. And I usually like to rinse the package before I add it in. And I also cooked up some eggs that I'm going to peel and add in there as well. The last thing I'm doing is I'm taking a chunk of potato kugel, I'm wrapping it up in parchment paper, and I am going to get that into the challah as well. It becomes so soft and tender. It's my favorite thing of the challah is actually the kugel. Once the soup is preheated and the oven is set to Shabbos mode, I am taking the pot and just sticking it into the oven so that it stays warm until we are ready to eat it. So this is it for my winter Shabbos cooking. I hope you enjoyed it and you consider subscribing to see my future Shabbos videos and my garden videos.